Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish and publish your book. I'm Mark DeVoe.
And I'm Mark Stay. And a big thank you to you. Yes, you listening to this right now, because without you, this would be completely pointless. And we want to thank you. Yes, the person who supports us on Patreon. Thank you so much. And yes, you, the person in the Academy that keeps this show on the road. We want to thank you all. But look, if you're not one of those people, if you're thinking, what do I get for being a patron? You get loads and loads and loads of extra episodes like deep dives. And we've had deep dives recently on how to write a bestseller in a day, on editing, on TikTok, on ADHD for authors, on screenwriting, on forensics, on writing blurbs, on Bookouture. We've had people from Bookouture. We've had chatbots deep dives, all sorts of amazing stuff. Got a really good one coming up on marketing as well, marketing mindset and all that good stuff. So if you want to support this podcast and get involved in that, pop yourself along to bestsellerexperiment.com/support. You can find out all about that there. It's worth its weight in gold. And also, if you want to get involved in the Academy, you get me and Mr. D as your tutors and an amazing community there, and some fantastic courses and great coaching opportunities. Go to academy.bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a link in the show notes. Just click a button and you'll be there. Mr. D, how are you?
I love this. It's good to be back. I have so much fun chatting with you each week, Mark. And we do get a lot of really great emails from people. A lot of them we can't read out, and we respect that, obviously, because but we have such I want people to remember, when you show up to this podcast, you got to get in our mindset, folks. You got to push away all those little voices in your head telling you you're not good enough, because we're here to inspire you, as we are every week, to find to go really deep and really pull out the very best writer that you know is within you, and help you quash some of those voices. And I just want to say thank you to all the people that write to us with their personal stories. Honestly, some of them bring tears to my eyes. I got one the other day. Obviously can't talk about it, but it brought tears to my eyes. And so thank you to that person, and you might know who you are, because it really helps, I think, as authors as well, when it's like getting a letter from one of your readers who tells you about how something's affected them. And, just talking about the importance of what we're showing up to do here, everyone listening to this as well, you're creating a legacy through your writing, which changes the lives of some people, and you'll never sometimes know the effect that your writing will have. But I just want to encourage you this week, if you think that you're not good enough, or you think you're never going to be a good writer, or it's never going to happen for you, keep on going, because we believe in you. And that's why we show up here each week, to continue, hopefully inspire you to keep going. So anyway, that was my little motivational minute, Mark. Totally,
nice. Right up front.
We do this towards the end of the show usually, but I thought, let's just front load this, especially, by the way, if you're new and you've been recommended this podcast by a friend, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, strap in, this is going to be fun. But we have a great interview for you, and we've got a lot of inspiring stuff to talk about, so stick with us. But Mark, before we do that, there's more dates in the diary for you this week, isn't there, Mr. Busy Man?
Yes, so I'm gonna be at another Comic-Con, and this is the MCM Comic-Con in London on Saturday, 27th of May, which is at the London Excel Centre. Hoping to do a really fun panel on Unwelcome, and we're gonna have some of the folks from Unwelcome there, and sort of doing a sort of behind the scenes thing there. Then there's gonna be a panel called Spellbound. So it's gonna be me, the author Jennifer Lane, Finbar Hawkins, David Towsey, Marion Gibson, and we're gonna be talking about witchcraft and wizardry in fiction. And then straight after that, at 4 p.m, I'm doing a magical murder mysteries panel as well. I think I'm moderating that one, and which we've got the authors Alice Bell and T.L. Huchu, and someone called Ben Narona. I have no idea who that is. So apparently they're a very loud, shouty author, but I'm looking forward to that one. So that should be really, really good. And there'll be a Forbidden Planet signing after that as well. So come along to the MCM Comic-Con, Saturday, 27th of May. I'll be there. I mean, it's the whole weekend. My son is going for the whole weekend.
How cool is that?
I love bonkers. That. Yeah.
No, I like. Do you know what I was thinking the other day? I was, being a dad myself and looking at ways to bond with the kids. I always think it's wonderful if one of your kids or multiple of your kids have a similar kind of interest. It's like if you're into a sport and you kind of like you take them to a footy game and you hope that they'll then support the same team as you, so you can sit and watch football together for the rest of your life, that kind of thing. But I think it's great that you get to share those opportunities with your son, Mark.
You say share. I mean, he turned 21 this year, right? And it sort of coincided with the Star Wars Celebration thing, which again was at the London Excel Centre. And I paid for him to have his 21st birthday present, to have his photo taken with Anakin Skywalker.
What a great present, right, for a Star Wars geek.
Yeah, absolutely. But we were there the whole day. And you say share, we arrived and I walked through. I said, here we are. I said, right, bye, Dad. It's like, what? I meet you at 11 for the photo show. Right, okay, fine. Yeah. So but you had a good
Sharing
time.
is the car journey or the train journey up there and back, right?
Yeah, exactly. The petrol money. Yeah.
Dad, I'm starving. Do you want to meet for lunch? I love it. Well, you have to enjoy these moments.
I do.
When kids grow up and they fly the nest.
Fleeting stuff, man.
Absolutely lovely daughter come back and see us for 2 days, and they are precious. They're precious moments because she's off living a life, and I'm so excited about that. But it's hard as a parent because you also really miss. You miss those family moments. You miss the time just chatting with your kids. And when they become adults, it's a completely different conversation. And I love those conversations. They're even meatier. Do you know what I mean? So,
when
if you're meeting your kids, then they answer back. I know. But no, if you're meeting your kids this week, or if you're like one of those writers, we've had a few of them on the show, haven't we, Mark, who like involve their kids, young kids, adult kids in their writing. I love that. Do you give me some feedback? Or you sit around the dinner table coming up with ideas. We've had that quite a few times.
What's the point? I mean, I do it. What's the point of having kids if you can't exploit them? I mean, it's payback for all those late nights and the pooey nappies,
That's right, exactly. Well, it's what do they say? How much kids cost you over a lifetime?
I dread to think.
I know. Yeah. They have these awful studies to tell you, like, it's $700,000 per kid. It's very, very unusual as to why people aren't having children anymore. It's like
it's weird, isn't it? I've got friends who on Facebook, they're traveling all over the world. They're seeing it amazing, and I'm like, how can they afford? Oh, they don't have kids, right?
Well, and if that's the decision you've taken, all power to you as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Honestly, it's
brilliant.
I think there's it's a fantastic world. But if you're taking part in the 200 words a day in May challenge, or you've been submitting your words just because you've been part of the 200 word challenge, we're going to do a fun name check at the end of the podcast today. First names only, though. I'm not going to reveal full names for privacy reasons. But if you have been involved, we're gonna randomly pick out a few names just to congratulate you on what you've done so far. And so tune in towards the end. But Mark, let's dive into this week's incredible guest.
Oh, it's a cracker. We've got Sue Watson. Now, Sue Watson started out as a TV producer at the BBC, and then she wrote her first book, and then she became a USA Today best-selling author, and then she sold over 1 million books. Now, what's interesting, we've got another author, and this is becoming a theme this year. We're interviewing. I've got further interviews down the line where I know this has happened, where they've had a kind of second act in their career. We sort of had it last week with Jonathan Whitelaw on the podcast. He started writing cozy crime, and now we've got Sue Watson, who started out writing kind of cozy rom-coms and then pivoted to thrillers. And she's got a new thriller out now called The Wedding Day. And we talk about her whole career. It's terrific stuff. So we discuss working with editors to generate ideas, night writing, and this blew my mind, actually, the uncanny similarities between rom-coms and domestic thrillers.
Brilliant. So let's dive in and listen to Mark chatting with the exceptionally talented Sue Watson.
Sue Watson, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. I'm great. We've got a little bit of sunshine today, just peeping through. So finally, we're starting to see a bit of spring.
Fingers crossed, eh? Well, look, with spring comes love, comes weddings, eh? How's that for a segue? And you've got a new book, thriller called The Wedding Day, which has such a wonderful high concept. I got a feeling, though, this isn't going to be on many sort of wedding engagement gift lists. Tell us about The Wedding Day.
Yeah, it's not white lace and promises at all. It actually was sparked from an idea by my editor who'd sort of seen this. I don't want to say what she'd seen, but she'd seen a news clipping. If I tell you what she'd seen, it will give it away. But she'd seen it and she said, "Hey, this, we could do something with this, couldn't we?" And she sort of left it with me, and I went away and came back with the whole idea. And yeah, it's a wedding, but not as we know it, really. And it's set on Corfu, which is somewhere I've been 2 or 3 times and love. And I think it's this beautiful setting for a summer read. And at the same time, it has, dark corners. Corfu is a very leafy, very sort of verdant place for Greece because it's quite wet in the winter. So you have those the climate can be quite cool in the winter. And also you have lots of sort of vineyards. And this is actually set in a vineyard on Corfu. So it's got a gorgeous setting, beautiful wedding, but it's very, very dark.
Yes, it's skeletons in the closet, all sorts of dark secrets. I'm fascinated that it came out of a conversation with your editor. Has that become a regular thing now for sort of generating ideas, you having a conversation with the editor, talking about what might work, what might not? Is that a sort of a productive, ongoing conversation that you have?
Yeah, I think it probably is on the whole. I have a great editor and we have fantastic conversations. I think sometimes I'll go to her with an idea and say, I really would like to do this. And we talk it through. And I feel very privileged, really, to have somebody who knows what they're talking about, who I can actually do that with. As a writer, before before you're published, you're constantly trying to work through these things yourself. You talk to friends and family. But to have an editor who says, well, actually, this, I'm with a commercial imprint. So she'll say, well, this is good at the moment. These are selling. And, I had this idea that I wanted to, for the resort, which was last summer's book, that's this one. And this is basically a book that's set in Devon and inspired by Berg Island, which is an Art Deco hotel where Agatha Christie used to write. Mm-hmm. And I just loved the idea of doing a locked room mystery somewhere like this, and talked to my editor about it, and she absolutely loved it. So what's great is you can go with it also with a seed of something. And if your editor likes it and feels it will go, she will then, or he will then, sort of develop it with you in those, so we have a sort of a good 2-hour conversation about it. And then I go away and write the book, really. So that's how it works.
And you're with Bookouture, who are much faster than a lot of regular publishers. They're digital first. Yeah. So you can take something that feels current and sort of, finger on the pulse kind of stuff and actually turn it around quite quickly, can't you, compared to other publishers?
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant that. And the same goes for sort of covers and blurb. If things change or right up until the last minute, you can make those changes. And I write 2 books a year. And to be honest, I'm only now thinking about the book I'm going to write next. I know what it's going to be, another locked room mystery, and I know what it's going to be about. And already I'm using sort of, references that are happening now, and I'm able to sort of input that into my book. For the wedding day, one of the things that kind of really influenced me, and again, it's about that speed of moving books along. In the UK here, we had the awful missing Nicola Bulley, the woman who went missing as she walked by the river. And that kind of really, you find, because it's a fast turnaround, I was able to, I didn't obviously reference that, but there were these ideas. I mean, the wedding day is about missing women, really, that, it's about women who go missing and have gone missing. And unlike Nicola Bulley, they don't always have family who care about them or are connected to them enough to look for them. And it kind of inspired the book as I was writing it, this idea that this woman was missing, this beautiful woman in her 40s was missing. And where could she be? I mean, sadly, we know now where Nicola Bulley was, but at the time, that really sort of fueled the horror of that, just for me, just really, I hope I've input some of that into the book, because and that's the joy is probably the wrong word, but that's the benefit of writing so fast and to what's happening now, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. All my crime author friends on social media, particularly Facebook, whenever there is a high profile case, they've all got their theory. And it's something, it might strike non-writers as macabre, or as, should we, but this is how we think, isn't it? We see something like this and I think as a writer, you're putting yourself in the feet of the victim, for want of a better word, the families, the cops investigating it, the locals. And of course, we've got, detective podcasters turning up on the scene and stuff like that. So, it might sound warped and sick and twisted to most people.
Yeah.
This is sort of what we do, isn't it?
It is. And in a way, gosh, you're right. You're absolutely right. And you do as a writer feel guilty about that as well. You feel this horrible guilt because you think about the family and what they're going through. And I suppose as well as writers, like actors, we put ourselves through it. We imagine what it's like to be there. And so in a way we are empathizing. It is an empathizing thing, but at the same time, it's you do feel guilty about it. You do. And you feel like, should I really? But I think as a writer, you're looking for the story, you're looking for the answers, you're looking for the conclusion. So you do become an armchair detective, whether you like it or not. You do, don't you? I mean, you must feel the same.
Absolutely. I mean, you're looking for a way in, you're looking for a point of view, I think. And there is, you don't want to exploit it. You're not thinking, I need to exploit this for my next book or whatever, but you are thinking, what would I feel like in that situation? And it's that feeling, it's that vibe that you get from something like that you can carry across into your writing. Because a lot of writing, I think, is a kind of sense memory, isn't it? Again, coming back to acting, where
totally
if you've got to write that scene where someone is about to be attacked or murdered or whatever, you got to put the reader in that situation, and it means going to some quite dark places, doesn't it?
Yeah. It really does. And sometimes I think that, I really, really admire, the sort of hardened crime novelists who can really go there. I mean, mine's sort of psychological thriller. It's domestic based often. And, so I can relate to that to a degree. But then not that I live that life, but, I can relate to how it would feel to live in a home and then that home be invaded by something horrific, but psychological rather than, physical or criminal always. And I think that I really admire that in crime novelists who can actually go that bit further and really take it, just go there, really. I don't know if I could really. It would be too horrific, for me personally.
Well, I think the important thing is that psychological angle, is that putting the reader in that situation, which, from the reviews, I mean, the reviews for your books are just phenomenal. Can't put it down, edge of your seat thriller. I mean, you're keeping people gripped. But this isn't how you started out, was it? Let's go back to how it all started for you. And you had a very successful career writing very different kinds of books. And then we had this pivot to thrillers. But let's go back to when you were a TV producer at the BBC.
Yeah.
And then you wrote your first book and everything changed. So talk about that changing career and how that came about.
Yeah, I mean, I was a journalist. I did a degree in English, and as lots of people with a degree in English, you think, what do I do now? And so I went into journalism. I didn't want to teach, so I went into journalism and ended up with the BBC as a producer, and that was fantastic. I produced a few programs that you may have heard of. I produced Points of View with Terry Wogan, and I always used to joke that I rented a hotel room by the hour with Terry Wogan because we used to film it actually in a hotel, and it was at Cliveden, the big hotel. And so, that was a fantastic life, and I absolutely loved it. But then my daughter became ill. She's absolutely fine now, but she became ill. Redundancies were offered, and having thought about it very seriously, I decided I wanted to spend more time. My daughter was 6 at the time, and I thought, on your deathbed, you don't worry about work. It's spending time with your kids, and we only had the one, and I just thought I want to be with her. So I became a sort of school mum for a short time, and during that time, when I was a school mum walking to school, I just started to think about where I would go next and what I was going to do next, because I never thought about giving up work. I just wanted to do something different that could keep me at home. And the only thing I could think that could keep me at home, where I could still go and pick her up from school every day, was to be a writer. And I kind of wrote, as often people do, my very first book, which was Fat Girls and Fairy Cakes, was actually my story, really, kind of. but my husband didn't leave me. So I'd have to say that every time because people were really, really awful to him. And he never did. He stayed. So basically that then developed and I wrote 12 rom-coms. And they did really well. But I read psychological thrillers and I watched crime programs and I watched, dark films. And so in a way, I think all the time I wanted to move to the dark side. And as much as I enjoyed writing the rom-coms and laughed along with them and enjoyed the whole thing, I just wanted to try something else. And my publisher are so brilliant. They said, okay, if you want to have a go, with absolutely no sort of guarantee at all from me, they said, okay, have a go. And so I wrote this one, which this was my first one. So I'd gone from sort of Love, Lies and Wedding Cake to Our Little Lies, which was my first thriller. And my books have now, thanks to the thrillers, really, the thrillers sell a lot more. I've sold nearly 1.5 million now books. And it was the best thing I did. I don't just mean, commercially. I mean, as a writer, I just feel this is my home.
Well, look, there's a lot to unpack there. And I want to go back to Fat Girls and Fairy Cakes, which is a brilliant title. But, it seems like you just decided to be an author one day and suddenly you had a deal. It can't have been that simple, though, could it? Tell us how Fat Girls and Fairy Cakes came to be, because it was rejected.
It was rejected. I had an agent and she said, this is amazing. This is fantastic. I'm going to be able to sell this. No problem. And like a year later, she still hadn't sold it to anybody anywhere. And I was really thrilled because I got an agent and she kind of then dumped me. So I had no agent, no book deal. And I found a very small publisher who aren't even publishing anymore. And they published it for me really, which was great. And that was great. And that was lovely. And it was a start. But my big break came with Book Couture, really. Mm-hmm. And I just wrote to Oliver Rhodes, who was head of Book Couture at the time. It was a very small publisher, probably 5 or 6 authors then. And I wrote to him and said, I've got this idea for a book. And it was Love, Lies and Lemon Cake, another cake book. And he said, oh, right, okay, let me have a look at the idea. And I sent him the ideas and he took a punt on me, really. Again, I was so lucky. And that really was life-changing. That was it. But I had been through probably 10 years of rejections before then, everything,
Wow.
I mean, to the point where I questioned whether I stopped for about a year and thought I'd just carry on. And I was doing some training for the BBC. I'd left the BBC, but I was still doing some training for BBC and things like that. And I just thought I'll do that instead. That's fine. I was happy, fine. But there was just something niggling all the time. Perhaps I could get that book published. And I did.
What did you, it's amazing. You're one of the original Book Couture authors, I guess. And it was a very new idea, this kind of digital first idea. How much did you know going in, particularly if you weren't agented at the time? Were there any suspicions? Did you think, is this is this like vanity publishing? What is this? How was it explained to you?
I did, but I did. Well, I did wonder about it. I didn't know what it was really. My first publisher was actually an accountant, so I didn't have a very high bar. I'd had Fat Girls and Fairy Cakes published by an accountant, so I was kind of probably very vulnerable, really. But just talking to Oliver Rhodes, who is just like amazing. I was convinced. I just talked to him and I thought he's either a real good salesman or he's as amazing as he seems. And he proved to be as amazing as he seemed. And, he's just got this magic touch. And, he started Book Couture and he's just, it's not just about the books. That's the author, at Book Couture now under Jenny Geras, we have fantastic publicity team, fantastic, editors, and it's just that pastoral care as well for the authors. If they think there's they always ask, how did we do after each book? They want to know how they did. And it's amazing. Having sort of, I did actually work with a big publisher and did one book with them. In the meantime, I call it my affair because I sort of went off and did did something with Little Brown, and it was great, and it was a great experience. But I just came back to Book Couture because, they sell more books. And they are just fantastic to work with. You don't work for, you work with them, and they're just brilliant. They really are. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now you had this incredible run. So you got like Younger, Thinner, Blonder, Snow Angels, Secrets and Christmas Cake, Bella's Christmas Bake Off, The Christmas Cake Cafe. I'm spotting a pattern here. Snowflakes, Ice Cakes, and Second Chances. So you're writing these, hugely popular contemporary fiction, and then you turn to the dark side, as you said. And it was your idea. It was your choice to sort of pivot to the sort of thing that you read. What prompted that change?
I think it was because I felt I'd said, perhaps now I could go back to rom-coms and say something fresh, but I felt in my rom-coms I'd come to a point where I hadn't got anything else to say. I'd covered the sort of middle-aged woman running away from it all and finding a younger lover, a handsome lover, an older lover, whatever. I'd covered everything, and my jokes were getting a bit stale, I think, as well. So I just thought, and as I said, I had these great ideas for dark stories, and I just really wanted to do that, and so I think it was simply that it was now is the time. I had the confidence in myself, which was probably very misplaced at the time, because you don't know. It could have been misplaced because I was actually, I couldn't sleep at night when I'd started to write Our Little Lies, which started out as, I think, The Surgeon's Wife. I think it started out as, and I couldn't sleep at night because I thought I'm going to embarrass myself apart from anything else. Because by then, I'd written 12 rom-coms. People knew me, readers knew me, other writers knew me, and it's a community. And
yes.
I thought, what if this is just a complete embarrassment? I was just so lacking in confidence, really. But Book Couture gave me a great cover, and it just it did incredibly well. It actually, in the audio, it got to #1, I think, in America, and it was like huge. It was really big. It knocked Michelle Obama off the top at one point, and I was just like, where's this come from? It was just amazing, and it was real Cinderella stuff, because I had done well with my rom-coms, but never to that degree, and never in America. But America really did sort of seem to love the thrillers, and that's really helped my sales and everything else, really.
Yeah, so it's a genre that travels, isn't it? Was there ever any suggestion of, because as you say, you had readers already who knew what to expect from you. Was there any talk of a pen name changing your name, putting it under a different name?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I would have liked a new name, actually, just because I would just like to be called something different. And I think now as Sue, people guess that you're not 21 when you call Sue. So I kind of thought I'd quite like to be somebody else, somebody Emma or somebody like that. But when I spoke to Book Couture and the team, they said that a lot of my readers were rom-com readers. Apparently do transfer, and they do like both.
Right.
And they felt if I were to go as me and be absolutely honest about it and not say writing as or anything else, I actually would inherit some of my original, rom-com readers, which I think I have, really. I do, I'm aware of a lot of readers who I've made friends with online who read both. So they were right about that.
Well,
they moved
that's what fascinates me, because I think Book Couture are all about the data. They know all about sales. They know all about, they're doing mailing lists from day one. They know everything about you, or not everything. They know a lot about your readers. Whereas a lot of traditional publishers, the Little Browns of this world, haven't made any effort to do that. And they know, and they were, having worked for Orion, which is part of the same group.
Yeah.
I would have sat in meetings. I guarantee we'd have said, well, if you were published by us, we'd have said, well, she's switching from one genre to another. We need a pen name, because these people, women who read this, are different to women who read that, based on what, our own assumptions. But Book Couture had the data and the confidence to do that, which is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and it wasn't something I insisted. I actually, as I say, I would have liked to change my name. I would have liked that, but they were quite insistent on. In fact, it was Oliver, I think I had the conversation with directly, and he said, "No, I think we'd like to keep you, as you are because of this." And and I was a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, but I thought, well, again, I wanted to suddenly become somebody else, somebody more glamorous, but I think I thought, well, I trust them, and I always have, really. And that's a really big thing for an author. If you trust your publisher and your editor, then, you can't go wrong, really. It's a big thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It means an awful lot. Well, you've had, huge success with these thrillers, as you say, has it changed the way you write? I mean, that you're working in a different genre. There are different expectations from the reader, and certainly, in terms of, twists and turns and that kind of thing. Has it changed your writing habit at all? And how has that evolved over the years?
I think it probably has, to a degree. I mean, obviously, lifestyle changes make a difference as well. My daughter's grown up now, and sadly moved away, so I don't have to go to school anymore, and I don't have those daytime sort of restrictions, and I don't have the nighttime restrictions either. So what I do find is with my thrillers, it's kind of morphed into a different kind of day now. I tend to work in the evenings more because I can, sometimes very late. And I find that the subject matter, because it's different, I do like to sort of read other books about that are thrillers in the same genre, but I try not and read I don't actually read as much as I used to, because I used to love thrillers, and now I don't want to read too many thrillers, because I do think, for me particularly, I don't want to be influenced. I want to try and do something that is just from me, and so I do watch a lot of Netflix and true crime and things like that, and I'm also too lazy probably to read, but I think that's changed. I used to love rom-coms and read them, and you could make your own sort of stories from them, but I do think with thrillers there are tropes and there are devices that other writers use that I don't want to copy them. I want to sort of try and come up with my own. And the differences as well, the big differences. I remember reading Robert Brinzer, who used to also write, who's very successful, he was with Booker, and he used to write rom-coms.
Right.
And I remember him saying, I'm sure I read in an interview, he said he got tired of trying to be funny. And I thought, I so relate to that. I think it's brilliant. I felt exactly the same. Now I'm tired of trying to be evil, but I can keep going a bit longer with that, I think, but now you're trying to think of it, I sometimes think it would be quite nice to be funny for a day, again, just write a funny story or something, but you just don't have the time. 2 books a year really is, for me. That other authors do more, but how many do you write a year?
Well, I write screenplays as well, so it gets a bit muddled up. So it's kind of 1.5 books a year, I guess, plus screenplays and stuff that will you probably never get made, but you have to write, pilots.
But that's a lot. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah,
really, 1.5 and screenplays is a lot.
Yeah, it's enough. Yeah. Was there anything that you sort of ported over from your rom-coms into thrillers that other thriller writers don't bring to the table? Is there anything, like I said, there was you've got that comic touch, you've got those the kind of a different feel of characters. Is there anything that you brought with you from writing those rom-coms into thrillers?
Perhaps another author said to me recently, "Oh, you do some just a humorous part bit. There's humor in your novels," and I actually hadn't really thought about it. I think I'm humorous, perhaps, but I think it's the same with the rom-coms. With the rom-coms, I was always trying to kill people, and my editor said, "You've got to stop killing people. You do writing rom-coms." And in this case, I've got a different editor now, but she now cut some of my jokes, and so I think probably I do, and I think some of the humor probably is a bit overload, because it's a tense moment, you can't really say something funny, but I just have to put it in, and my editor will delete it, because quite rightly it ruins the tension. So yeah, I think I probably do bring a bit of humor, and I would like to explore more of that, really. I'd like to perhaps do something slightly different that's a thriller with sort of probably 50% humor, a more light-hearted thriller perhaps in the future, not at the moment, but it's something I've thought about, because I think it would be fun to combine the two. I also think domestic thrillers, and again, Jenny Geras, who the CEO of Booker, she always says, a domestic thriller, is in a house, and it can be about a relationship, and it can be about, perfect lives. And the same thing is true of rom-coms, but instead of the laughs, you get the twists. It's kind of the same. You can set it in the same place with the same people, but it's what you do with it really that's different.
Very good.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you like writing at night generally, and actually, most of the people we speak to tend to write in the mornings. Tend to be more morning people than night owls. But you're a night owl, so are you kind of through the day? Are you thinking ahead to that writing session? What you're going to be doing? Is it mulling away, or do you try and push it to the back of your mind?
I'd like to say, you talk about writing session like I plan it. I'm afraid it's not quite as organised. I mean, it's one of those things where, the day goes on and I sort of think, oh, I really need to do that. Oh, I really need to do that. I must sit down and do that. And then I find something else, like, groom the cat or find a friend who'll go and have a coffee with me. And it's like homework avoidance, and I do procrastinate terribly. So I suppose in a way, part of the reason I work at night is because by then I've got nothing else to do and nothing else to distract me. And also I do find social media is distracting. And so if I write at night, I can write anything from sort of 9 o'clock until 2 a.m. And you don't really get the same, there's not the same noise really on any level. And my husband will either read a book or, listen to music on his headphones. So he's around, but there's only the two of us now because, our daughter doesn't live with us. So I don't really have any noise. It's great, really. And that seems to be a natural, organic time for me to write, Do you write in the day or evening?
I'm a morning person. I'm usually wiped out by 10 o'clock. Yeah. Can't do any more after that.
You see, I don't get up till 9:30. So, it's...
Are you? I read somewhere as well that you write quite a detailed synopsis up front. Is that something that you still do? Tell us about that.
Yes, it is. Again, for somebody who isn't really a planner, and I'm not really, I do like to have a synopsis, quite a detailed one. It might be about 3,000 or 4,000 words or more even. And my current editor, who is great, she also likes that too. So we work well. We do that together. We'll talk it through, and then I'll go away, write a detailed synopsis. She'll look at it, and then we'll have another chat, or she'll make notes. Right. And so it's really quite detailed. So I use it like a sat nav, really. And sometimes I might go off piste slightly. I might go a slightly different direction. And sometimes, as you will know, your characters, it sounds a bit pretentious, but they do take you in a different direction. And sometimes they're just begging for something else to happen, aren't they? And you think, got to go with this. Which I think is one of the loveliest things about writing to me. I can't believe that happens. It's just like you're working with other people, really.
Yes.
So it makes you feel less solitary, really, and so I do have a detailed synopsis, and but it's not. I don't have. One author I know, she knows exactly how many chapters she's going to have, and she can plot it out that way. And I wish I could be more like that. I think that would make my writing process easier. But whether it would work for me, I don't know. I think it would be too restrictive for me. That I think I need that freedom to just go off when I need to. But I've got a guide just in case, I can't go too far. Yeah.
But that ongoing conversation with your editor is there again, and you're sort of testing what works before you kind of commit to something, which must be kind of reassuring, knowing that you're on the right track.
Absolutely. And if you do have doubts, my editor's great. I can just email her and say, what if this and this happened? And she'll get back straight away and say, well, this could happen, but think about that. And that's really useful. That's really useful. And also sometimes when you're writing and you just have doubts about what you're writing, you think it's okay, because I'm with an editor called Helen Jenner. I think, well, Helen thinks it's okay, so it's going to be okay. And it's that kind of, sometimes you just need to know that, because it is such a solitary experience, isn't it, being a writer? Sometimes it's all on your shoulders, you feel, and it is lovely to have an editor where you know you can just go to them and they're there for you, really. And the editors of Bookshare are very busy. There's obviously fast turnaround, and we're all working absolutely to a peak. I think, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think sometimes if everybody's on it and running fast, it's a good thing, really, because we're all ready for it, really. Yeah,
absolutely. Now you mentioned I don't. You said you're getting a bit tired of being evil. So, is there a potential third act coming from you? You've had the rom-com, you've had the thriller. Is there another Sue Watson, pivot coming in the future? Do you think?
Well, I can't remember. I think I've done 10 or 11 thrillers now, and I'm about to write my 12. I can't remember now, but no, I think for now, the foreseeable, the next 2 or 3 books, I've signed a contract with Bookshare anyway, and I've got those 3 books sort of signed up, and I know what they're roughly going to be, and they are going to be evil. But as I say, I think depending on, again, with a commercial eye to it, because let's not, I do it for the love. I do it for the love, but also, I don't want to write books that nobody's going to read. So yes. If I found that, things changed that way, then I would certainly, as a journalist, I feel I can kind of adapt to different genres if I have to. So I would change genres. I love this genre. I'd love to do crime at some point in the future. I'd love to do crime. I'd love to develop a detective.
Right.
And I'd like to do something quite humorous and combine that, perhaps a funny detective. But everybody's come up with every kind of detective possible, haven't they? So I think it's about the problem there would be coming up with something fresh, really, I think. And that would have to take some thinking, I think.
Cool. Well, if anyone can do it, you can, Sue. We look forward to it. In the meantime, The Wedding Day is out there now. So, actually, before I let Columbo, one more thing. I read somewhere you once dated Sean Ryder from the Happy Mondays. I can't let that. I have to ask about that.
Yeah, it was. Dating is probably formalising it far too much. It was. I knew him, and we there was a spark, and we had a little fling, and it was short lived. But that's my claim to fame. That and Terry Wogan. Where else do you go? Sean Ryder and Terry Wogan. I've run the gamut there.
Did you get a glimpse into what was? I assume this was before Sean Ryder was famous.
Sadly.
Did you get some idea of what he was going to become?
Well, I do have a sort of Sean Ryder story, because he was really. Oh, he'll probably kill me for this. But he was really lovely. He was really handsome, and he had bleach blonde hair, and he wore a zoot suit when I knew him, and he was the cutest. He was just so cute. And I think he might have even been, I think he was my age, but certainly not older. And nothing like he is now. And so we sort of were friends and 1 or 2 other things, and that sort of happened. And then years later, I was living in London, and he was famous, and I went to a gig, and my friend got us after into the after party, and I don't really know how she did it, but and I sort of went up to and approached him, and he hardly remembered me really, which was really flattering. And he said he actually remembered my boyfriend, who I went out with after him. So he remembered him, but hardly remembered me. And he said, excuse me, and he said, oh yeah, I do remember, your boyfriend, and I remember the time, and I remember, because we all worked in a cinema. And he said, but will you do me a favour? If you go to the News of the World, which was then with this story, will you can tell them whatever you like. You can say I did anything. You can say anything, Sue, but please don't tell them I wore a zoot suit. So, and it was just so funny, But and he was lovely, and he was really nice, and we chatted, and we knew a lot of the same people, and so it was really interesting to meet him years after, because he was just as sweet, really, and just as nice. But obviously, he'd lived quite a life by then, really.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sue. Thanks for sharing that. And folks, as I said, The Wedding Day is out there, and many other fantastic books, some with cakes in them. So do check them out. Sue, great to speak to you, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Lovely to speak to you, Mark. Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book, quitting the day job, becoming a best-selling author? Well, over 4 years, we've studied the advice of over 300 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 500 million books. And we are excited to announce the Bestseller Academy. If you're ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, and coaching, your bestseller dreams are now only a click away. To find out more and apply, visit bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. Wow, what an interview. I honestly don't even know where to start, Mark. There's so much to unpack there, but we'll do our best. And we got a lot to get through. We've got to give it a shot. Let's start where Sue started, which I was fascinated by this discussion around taking ideas from the news and some of the emotions that can come up as part of that. And it made me appreciate some of the challenges for crime writers, for thriller writers.
It is very much a crime writer, thriller writer kind of thing. And I've got lots of crime writer friends on Facebook. And whenever there is, one of these tragic stories on the news, they will, not in a ghoulish way, and this is the key thing to think about. They think about every aspect of this. They will have these long conversations about what they think happened, what the police are doing, how the investigation is going, the attitude of the press, the attitude of people's reaction to the press, all of these things. And it gives you a great insight into the mind of a crime writer, in that they're thinking not just about the mechanics of the crime, who did what to whom kind of thing, but the effect, the emotional effect it has on the victims' families, on the people who maybe their work colleagues, on the police, on maybe the killer. What made the killer do what they, how did they become this person? What were the motivations around it? So it's not just about being ghoulish and going, oh, I could exploit that to write a juicy thriller. It's more about going, oh, wow, look at how people are reacting to this situation. What if that was someone you knew? What would your reaction be? And what would be the reaction be if you knew who the killer was, or if you had some insight, or you had some information but you couldn't run it? So you start looking at it from every single angle, and there's something about the mind of the crime writer that's so good at that, and treats it with a sensitivity, treats it with a kind of insight that I really, really admire, because it would be so easy just to slide into a kind of a salacious kind of, oh, do you think he did it kind of thing. And I take my hat off to crime writers who really do this so well. And Sue is absolutely one of those.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey to be on. I think from a really positive perspective, it actually helps really build empathy, doesn't it? It helps you when you have to really try and get into the mind of someone who's had to go through something like that in reality. I think it's a very important journey that an author needs to take, and it can be quite a scary one. Obviously, there's a lot of authors that are writing these things, hopefully not too often firsthand, like having experienced it in their own life, but possibly secondhand, like through someone that's gone through it. And then third hand, I guess, would be if you're reading about it in, say a public, newspaper or article. But to actually have to get into the mind of a character who is either experiencing it, has gone through it, did it, whatever it might be, all those different angles that you have to explore. I think it's a brave and incredible venture to go on. But I think you come out of it as an author being a much more worldly, empathetic, and compassionate individual, because you've literally you've gone through the ringer. And obviously, for people that have experienced it firsthand, then it's obviously, from the heart, they understand what it's like to experience that. But
I think it's also a reason why we see so many lawyers and police officers go into writing as well, because
yes, you're right.
They will have experienced. They would have experienced it, and experienced it in a way that they have to put their professional hat on and follow strict procedures, and take a moment to think about everyone involved in the case, yes, and what their point of view is, and their aspect, on the situation. Which is, when we create fictions, we're very often focused on a protagonist, but eventually, either in the first draft or subsequent drafts, we are also thinking about those other characters and their point of view and what they're thinking. And I mean, one of the things I always do is I will do a pass from the point of view of the antagonist, and even if they're the most kind of villainous black cat baddie you can think of, you've still got to kind of ask yourself, well, why are they doing this? What is their motive? What are they hoping to get out of this? Because the villain is the hero of their own story. And yes, they might have had to make difficult choices and do terrible things, but there must be a reason for that. I think the second you start going, well, he's just a homicidal maniac. Well, yeah, but let's dig a little deeper. That's it. Certainly in terms of narrative.
Have to ask the question why.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where you go. And I think as well, it's an interesting point you mentioned about lawyers, police officers, anyone who's supporting someone or a family through a tragic incident or event that's happened. But all of these people, it's easy to forget, in their professional capacity, they show up to work and they might do this every day. They might be in, court dealing with horrific cases. But they are still human beings, and every human being has an emotion. It doesn't matter what profession you do, you're still affected by it. I have a friend who volunteers for the fire service here, and a lot of people don't realise this, but in a lot of Canadian towns, most of the fire department are volunteers, and they have maybe one or two paid in like 30 or 40 volunteers, and they have to go. These are like, dads of friends of mine, dads with kids, and 1 minute they're sitting at home having dinner with their family, and they get a beeper call, and the next minute they're showing up at a car wreck on the highway, and they're having to deal with something horrific or a fire like in a home. And these, you can't leave that stuff there. You bring it back, and so again, it gives me an incredible amount of respect for anyone who goes there. That has to go there, whether it's from a supportive perspective or having to deal with it in their own life, or an author who's willing to say, I really want to understand what this must be like. So I really want to get my characters to embody the reality of what this is. And it's part of the whole cycle of life in many ways. It's part of the whole experience of life, I should say. This emotion, the exploring these different kinds of emotions, it can make you more grateful for the good that you have in your life. To not, if you look at that perspective and your life is maybe pretty, rock solid and things are going well, it makes you appreciate that. Whereas in the moment you might not. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's a fascinating area. Now, one other thing that Sue mentioned, which really, really excited me, was this idea that a book doesn't have to be just written, spending a year, 2 years, 5 years writing this book. And then you've got your moment where you send it to your potential publisher and say, will you publish this, or an agent. Sue talks about how sometimes with an agent, it can be a collaborative process for generating ideas for something.
Yeah, agents and editors, and it's that thing of delivering kind of what they want, or at least getting a steer. I mean, there are some authors who might think, oh, crikey, I don't want anyone telling me what to write, sort of thing. But I think when you're dealing with a company like Bookouture, who seem to be doing a lot of the right things and know their customers really well and know, what they want. And we'll talk more about this in extended version, that kind of genre thing. But if you've got an agent, if you've got someone there with a foot in the industry who is dealing with this day in, day out, why would you not have a conversation with them and say, okay, what do you think is going to work? What in your expert opinion is going to, I mean, this is one of the things, if you're, I know a lot of people, ask us, how do I get an agent? And the temptation once you get an agent is just to fling yourself at the agent and go with them because, we're all like wallflowers at a disco and we're just grateful for the attention. But don't forget that you got to make sure that the right agent, the right kind of editor. So maybe just say to them, okay, you're an agent. What are people doing right? You're the most successful author on your list. What are they doing that no one else is doing? And is that something I could do? Because if you do that from day one, then that agent's thinking, okay, someone with a bit of ambition, and they want to, people like to be liked. I know we think of agents and editors in these kind of hallowed terms, but they're just like you and me, and that they like having their ego, prodded, and they like to think that they do have an expertise that they can share, and if you ask, they will share it.
Agents spend their entire week chatting with publishers. And so they have a lot more insight into what's happening in that world. And so if we're lucky enough to get agents, we should absolutely be tapping into their expertise. I think there's a two-way thing here. I think some authors are like, well, I don't want to be told what to write. Absolutely. I mean, we always know that we've heard it again and again, write what you love. But sometimes it can be about, of all the things you love and of all the things you might write about, which are the things out there that agents are saying, oh, this looks like it, it seems to be, this seems quite hot right now. And if it combines with one of your loves, then go with that. Like, make the most of like the market research. Like, every successful company in the world does research. As an author, we should do research. If we want to become successful authors, we want people to buy our books, then we should be asking that question as early on in the process of an idea as to what are people looking for right now. And there's not always one thing. It's like, give me a list of 10 things and then find the one thing in that list of 10 that is on your list already. And maybe that's the thing that you write.
That's it, exactly. This shouldn't be a case of the tail wagging the dog. You shouldn't go, oh, okay, people are writing this kind of book, so I'm going to write that kind of book, because by the time you finished it, the trend will have moved on. But if you can figure out that there's something that people like, then do that thing that they like.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Write your list first, but don't just say, I want to write this one thing. Like, what? There's so many things. That's the biggest curse of an author. We all want to write 15 books at once because we've got so many ideas, hopefully. Yeah.
Tell me about
but
it.
It's very, very, very worth kind of delving that and ask the questions. Find out if you're stuck and you're not sure what you should write, then it should be an agent. Even if you haven't got an agent, just ask an agent. I mean, maybe you'll get an agent by asking them an intelligent question. It might be the door that then they can, oh, who are you? And tell me what you're. That'd be quite a nice way of doing it, right? Instead of kiss chase. I always remember kiss chase in Playground, right? When you start chasing someone, they run away. The minute you stop chasing them, they're like, oh, hang on a minute, why are they not? And then they wander over. Maybe that's the approach. I don't know.
I had completely forgotten about kiss chase until this point. We'd all be cancelled for that now. You know that, don't you?
Yeah. Isn't it funny? Did COVID kill off kiss chase? I don't even know if kiss chase was still going on in primary schools.
Oh, I doubt it.
I think it is, Mark. I think.
Do you think?
Do you not think? I think kiss chase when we were in primary school, it was like, I remember it was F1. That was our first class. We were about 5 years of age, 5 or 6 years of age. It was kind of like early dating, wasn't it?
Right. Any teachers that, oh God,
not early dating, but like playing with the idea of it.
Any teachers out there, tell us if kiss chase is still a thing.
Yeah, what happens if somebody plays kiss chase? And actually, it might be different in different countries in the world. We've got listeners from all over the world. So, we want to know, because it's important, because someone's probably thinking about writing in their book. So we need the research done now.
That's true, yes.
Goodness me. Yeah, but it's true. There's weird stuff that comes up from your memory as a kid, isn't it? I love it.
I gave blood earlier today, so I'm getting slightly delirious.
Do you know what sparked it, Mark? If anyone's watching on YouTube, Mark is wearing the most awesome T-shirt today for this podcast.
Is great.
It's the VHS logo.
Doesn't that logo...
Do you know what I want, Mark? Go on.
Well, it's just the logo just brings back so many happy memories of seeing that on the spine or on the tape or on the machine, and just thinking, there is going to be magic in this, some movie or TV
DVD
show.
Just doesn't do it. The Blu-ray doesn't do it.
No.
You know what I should do, Mark? I should have a Betamax. The 2 marks as defined by 80s technology.
Betamax was it was the better format.
It was superior, right?
Yeah.
But
was
didn't
the better format.
Survive. Which actually is a great lesson for many authors. Like, it's sometimes it's not.
Well, hang on. I'm not sure this is a great lesson, because do you know why VHS became the more popular format?
Go on, enlighten me.
The adult entertainment industry adopted it. So if you wanted photos of consenting adults having naked fun, then it was on VHS. They chose VHS, and that's why it became the format of choice.
Wow. I did not know that. The porn industry, basically run.
I tried to avoid that word because
it's so lovely.
It will appear on on a transcript, and then suddenly, yeah.
Then it'll get. I'll probably get like 5 times as many listeners, Mark.
Exactly. Yeah.
It works for them. Anyway, moving swiftly on. But actually, folks, we're going to be talking about all of that and more in the not just about that, but in the extended edition of this podcast, we have a lot to talk about. We have in particular the idea of the essential elements of genre. We're going to deep dive a bit into what's this magic effect that's going on with Bookouture, like 1.5 million sales for Sue. We keep hearing about the magic of these digital first, when it's done right, these digital first publishers, and we're going to deep dive a bit into that. We're also going to talk about, is it you or is it the agent? Because Sue did get an agent and the agent couldn't sell her work, but Sue became very successful. So if you have had an agent and it didn't work out, was it your book? Was it you? Or was it the agent? We're going to discuss that. Also, self-confidence and belief. How important is that for you as an author if you want to succeed as a writer? We're going to look a little bit into success in the US and pen names. And also, is it important to avoid reading your own genre that you're writing when you're writing? And then finally, we're going to deep dive into, can you run out of gas if you try and do something for too long? So loads to unpack, folks. If you want to join us in the extended, please pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com/support and join as a patron or join the Academy to get all of these extra goodies. So, folks, thanks very much for joining us in this extended of the Sue Watson interview. And we're going to talk about first the essential elements of genre, Mark. I know this was something that really you found fascinating, didn't you?
Well, it just hadn't occurred to me before when she said that she was quoting Jenny Garris, who is in a recent deep dive that we did. Jenny Garris runs Bookouture now, and I'll put a link in the show notes. If you've not seen heard the deep dive, go check it out because it's a really, really interesting interview. But Jenny Garris said, a domestic thriller is set in a house and it's about relationships, but so is a rom-com. And it just, I thought was a really good insight into how publishers view genre. So, I guarantee there would have been an acquisitions meeting with Sue's book where people in Bookouture would have sat down and gone, so what is it? She's doing something different. Oh, it's a domestic thriller. Oh, but it's set in a house. And actually she knows about this, so she can do this really, really well. Sold. So how knowing what the essential elements of your genre are and knowing that you can deliver that, I think could help make you getting published and picked up a lot more likely. Again, like we were saying before, this isn't about the tail wagging the dog. It's about you knowing what publishers and readers, more importantly, readers are looking for when they pick up a book in a particular genre. Now, these are very, very broad brushstrokes. I'm going to do 3 here. I'm going to talk about fantasy, romance, and a murder mystery. So I think if you're writing a fantasy novel, does it have a magic system? Okay. Fantasy is all about magic. There has to be some kind of, even if magic, I wrote a book, I thought I was being clever. I thought I'm going to write a fantasy novel that doesn't have magic in it. I'm going to call it The End of Magic. How clever am I? I don't have to invent a magic system. And then what I realized very quickly was that in order to take away a magic system, you have to have one there in the first place in order for there to be some sort of fallout. So I actually gave myself twice as much work. So think about the magic system. Think about the fantasy world and we talk about world building in all genres, but it's so much more crucial in fantasy fiction that you figure out how your world works. And usually, sort of tagging onto that, there's usually some kind of power system or hierarchy in a fantasy world that you need to work with. And another big element of fantasy is tradition versus change. It's one of these things where there is a pivotal moment in the history of the world that maybe magic or your character is involved with. And very often there's an epic journey in fantasy. So think about those. You could Google these until the cows come home. But if you're writing a fantasy novel, certainly a magic system, world building, the power struggles, those big changes in history and those epic journeys, those are kind of essential elements. And of course, you've got that reluctant hero at the center of it all as well, which is such a massive kind of hero's journey trope. But it's something we love. We absolutely love that. So that's fantasy. With romance, And again, we did a good deep dive on this with Jeevani Charika. And again, I'll put a link in the show notes where we talked about the elements of a great rom-com. But in particular, we'll focus on romance here as that kind of pure genre. You need a love story. I know it sounds obvious, but you do need a love story at the heart of a romance. And I think what makes that love story so important is that emotional tension. You've got a challenge to that love, to true love. And then you need an emotionally satisfying ending. That's not the same as a happy ending. I think a lot of people think, I'm writing a romance, I have to have a happy ending. That's not always the case. I think 95% of them will be, but you will find that you can write a romance that doesn't have them going off into the sunset together, but maybe they've learned something that makes them better people and they can move on. And then a whodunit, a murder mystery. What do you need for that? You need a murder victim or victims, plural. Setting, a suitable setting. So, the big cliche is they're at a remote manor house somewhere in the middle of nowhere where people start getting bumped off. But, what are the other genres? Maybe you could set it on a plane or a cruise ship or, on a campsite, something like that. Think of, how crucial your setting is. The suspects are essential elements of a whodunit. You need a rogues gallery of people who maybe they've all got a reason to bump someone off. You need a red herring or two, to put people off the scent. You need a sleuth, a great detective who's going to figure this all out. You need your culprit. You need the person who did it. And then I think, like the happy ending with a romance, and unlike the real world crimes that we were talking about earlier, you need a comeuppance. You need some justice. I think one of the reasons crime fiction at the moment is so popular is because it does deliver on the justice front. The criminal does get taken away in handcuffs. It's interesting because when I worked at Orion, we have wonderful Michael Connolly, and I was always pitching his books for promotions on Amazon and the like, and they always did really, really well. But he did. Michael started as a journalist, and he would cover the crime beat in LA, and he did a book essentially of his best writing as a crime journalist, and there were so few of them, tragically, that ended with, oh yeah, so-and-so did it and they went to jail. So much of the time it was, and we never really found out what happened. And sadly, that's what a lot of real life is like. And I think this is why crime writers go into this in such detail, because they want to take that unsatisfying reality and then give it that satisfying ending. So think about your genre, folks. Think about what genre you're writing in, and then think about the essential elements. And does your book have those essential elements? Doesn't have to have them all, but I think if it does, if you tick more of those boxes, you are much more likely to be picked up by a publisher or an agent. And like I said, it's not the tail wagging the dog. I'm not saying you should write to a formula or that you should write to market or anything like that. But if you can give these things an original twist, all the better. I sort of did it by accident with The End of Magic by saying, I'm going to remove one of those elements. But actually, by doing that, I gave it a twist, which is something people comment on in the reviews, which they like. So yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah, there's definitely a secret sauce there, which is hard to define. Mm-hmm. But just knowing that by following it and doing it, you are increasing your chances. So it's a very important thing to pay attention to, for sure. Now, one other area when the idea of agents come up, I found really fascinating. A lot of people see this holy grail of getting an agent as the beginning of the best-selling career. You got your agent, right? Let's go for it. And it's the Hollywood story as to how your book gets, 16 publishers auctioning deals and, fighting over it, and your six-figure advance. But, there are stories of people who get their agent and the agent's great and they work hard trying to sell the book for a year and it doesn't happen. And It got me thinking.
This happened to me.
Well, yeah, and I think it's a lot more common than we think about, because obviously we hear about all the success stories, which we would do, but for every success story, how many stories are there of where it didn't work out? And so it got me thinking about, if you're listening to this today or watching this today and you think, I had that agent and we couldn't find anyone interested in my book, it didn't work out. I sometimes wonder how many people at that point, authors, would, especially us being a kind of like, vulnerable individuals that we are, we get beaten up by that, and we come out of that whole experience thinking our book wasn't good enough, we're not a good author, we're never going to make it. But looking at Sue's experience, it wasn't her, and it wasn't all the book or part of the book. It maybe was the agent that just wasn't able to sell it. And there are a few different elements as to where the stars have to align, aren't there, Mark? There's the right agent, but there's also the right time, and sometimes a little bit of luck thrown in there as well. And so people shouldn't give up just because an agent couldn't sell their book. That doesn't mean that your book isn't good enough.
Absolutely not. I mean, let's step back and take a broader view of this, which is you might write 3, 4, 5 books before you have a smash hit. Simple as that. And if you were to give up and walk away after a couple of mediocre books sales, who knows what you've given up on?
I know. It could be that, but it could be the one book before the smash hit that you give up.
Exactly. And I know this business is tough on people. We've seen lots of stories in the bookseller about mental health of authors and the expectations that we have and how they're not always met. But if you can find that resilience, if you can find that inner strength to keep going, even when it seems like all is lost or that it's going absolutely nowhere. I mean, I've had this moment so many times in my career. So many times where I thought, oh, is this it? Am I done? And I have genuinely. I'm not just saying it. I mean, I've gone. Yeah. I'm on my 5th and 6th agents as of now, and I love both of them, and I'm very happy with both of them. But the agents before that have been quite a mixed bag. So my first agent was great. She was a children's author's agent, but for various reasons to do with the business, she became too busy and kind of handed me over to another agent, and we didn't click at all. Just didn't work. And so that came to a kind of a tragic end. I had a script agent who was terrific, really, really good, but massively overworked, and then set off to start her own agency. And she said, I can only take people, I'm afraid, who are making me money. I'm really, really sorry. In my mind, Robot Overlords happened 2 weeks after that, but I'm sure there was a bigger gap. But it was one of those things. That was a genuine. When the script agent dropped me and the book agent dropped me, and I had no agent, and I was working on a very early version of the Woodville books that seemed to be going nowhere, and I thought, oh crikey, is this it? Am I done? And I was messaging other authors saying, can you recommend an agent? What do I do? And the feedback I got was from people, just hang in there. And I did, and Robot Overlords happened. I got an agent off the back of that out of necessity because we had to negotiate contracts. So I got a script agent, a book agent at the same agency out of that. Now, post Robot Overlords, it didn't really work out because we never had that kind of relationship. It was out of necessity. So that kind of fizzled out. And then I got management in Hollywood, which is a story all of its own.
It's a deep dive in itself.
And that didn't really work out. And again, I was kind of agentless. And again, I was thinking, oh boy, is this it for the second time in my career? And then I put The End of Magic out on submission, and I got Ed Wilson, who has been my agent for actually very long time now, and has been absolutely amazing. And then on the movie side of things, I got Matthew Dench as my script editor agent, and again, been with him about the same length of time, actually. So I've had at least 2, maybe 3 occasions where I thought, they can't sell what I'm writing. I'm not getting work. They don't understand me. They don't get me. This is it. I'm stuffed. And I've come through the other side. And I'm sure it might happen again.
And you know what? I think it's good to hear that story, Mark, because I think a lot of people, I mean, we've had the authors who've come on. I can think of a couple like multi-million selling authors who met the agent, and it's almost like they're joined at the hip now. They've been together 35 years, and it's like another partner almost in their marriage. And I think that's brilliant when that happens, when you find that soulmate in your agent who's a lifelong business partner with you, which is really what they are. and a supporter and cheerleader and all the great things that you get from that. But I think it's not uncommon for people to, I think it's more about persistence. If you have an agent doesn't work out, it's all about the author's persistence. If they give up at that point, then they only ever have one agent. You're persistent. You kept on looking, you went out there, you asked, you found, and it's like if you're on the dating scene, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes, you think it's great. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. So I think it's very important for people to remember that it's great if you get an agent for life, but it doesn't have to be like that. It's an agent who's right for you at the right stage of your career. Sometimes you might outgrow your agent. Sometimes their personal, as you mentioned twice in your examples, Mark, their personal motivations are, I need to do this for my career. I need to go and build a bigger thing, or I might be quitting agency, or I never really was into it in the first place. It's something on their side that's the issue, is not you. So I just want to encourage everyone who's out there, if you're trying to find the agent, you haven't found the agent yet, if you've had an agent, they're not working hard enough for you, if you've agentless, having had an agent, just keep going. That's why it's the word agents plural. There's not just one agent, right? Keep on going. It's actually ultimately your success is always the thing you can control. It's always down to your persistency and your ability to never give up. And that leads us nicely on to this idea of confidence and self-belief, which I think is one of the secret sources for successful authors. Now, I'll put a caveat here. I think most authors start off lacking self-belief, lacking confidence, because it's like a plant. You have to grow it. Right? You have to feed it. You have to nurture it. You have to have a few successes. And of course, you're going to get knocked back when things don't work. And it's going to put a dent in the car. It's going to put a dent in that confidence, self-belief. But really, this is just part of the journey of life. Like, when do you wake up and you don't stub your toe, or you're late for something? Every day, something doesn't go right in our day, right? And it's like we're always annoyed about it and surprised about it or upset, or we get all dramatic about it and offended by it. But at the end of the day, it's ups and downs. That's what life is about. And it's not about the ups and downs, because they'll happen regardless. It's how we choose to respond to them. And so I always think about confidence, self-belief as this idea of building something which is going to go up and it's going to get high, and you're going to get times where it's going to be like, woohoo, and you're going to get this big shot, and then it will drop down. But the question is, where is it always leveling off? It's like guitar practice. Every time you pick the guitar up and practice, or piano, like, do you improve through the experience? Absolutely. Do you get a point where you hit a brick wall? Absolutely. Do you maybe sometimes stop practicing and you get a bit worse? Of course. But where do you level off? Are you always leveling off slightly higher than you were before? If you could plot that in your life, you're seeing the upward trajectory the whole way to the end of your life. And that's what life is about. It's about growth. And so anyone who lacks self-belief and lacks confidence, that is not a statement. It's just a story that you're telling yourself. And the point is that you have to build it. Like a builder builds a house. You wouldn't stop halfway when you built the wall. You keep adding more and more bricks every day. And you have to keep on doing that. And it doesn't matter where you're at. Tomorrow you might have a little bit more, but by the end of next month, you might have more than you averaged for the last year. So I just want to encourage people, like, look at Sue. She said, didn't she, Mark? She said, I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. She used the word embarrassed so many times. I was embarrassed. I lacked confidence. And then she talked about, and you can tell in her voice, she has that confidence now. Why? Well, she's proved to herself that she can do it. She's got the book sales to prove it. She's got the backstory now to prove it. And she's living off that story now, not the one that she started out with. I think so many authors are affected by this, aren't they, Mark?
Yeah, no question. And there is this fine line. I think we're all very aware that we can cross this line into kind of an overconfidence, a hubris, that we think we're it kind of thing. Which
is okay, because then you get the knockback.
Yes.
Because it always will show up at that point.
Oh, yeah.
But then that's okay, because but you're right. If you can like not let the ego get to that point, then it's not so much of a crash when you fall off the surfboard.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a healthy ego, but it gets a regular kick. It really does.
Yeah. But yeah, what's your, so to think about this question, folks, what's your version 2.0, or maybe your version 3.0, or your version 8.0, whatever it might be for you? Allow yourself to leave the older you as part of your older life, and moving forward, how do you want to recreate yourself? How do you want to think differently? What level of confidence are you going to take with you moving forward? These are all things which will help you succeed. Talking of success, sorry, go on.
Sorry, and you never know where it's going to lead. I had no intention of becoming a podcaster, and there's no question it's made me a better writer, and I've met incredible people off the back of it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a yeah.
Exactly.
No
idea.
Yeah. Sorry, interrupted.
Let's talk about success in the US, not just because it rhymes really nicely, but because I was amazed. Again, what a great story from Sue. I mean, how many people can say they knocked Michelle Obama off the #1 spot? The reason I bring this up is we've had a lot of conversations in the past about the struggles of breaking the US, either as a US author or an international author, because it's a big market, right? It's one of the biggest markets. But it makes me wonder, here's a UK author with a UK publisher, and yet they made it work in the US, and not only made it work, but made it hugely successful. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, how much of it is down to, it's just hard to break into the US, or how much is it about the knowledge of the people that are promoting your book, the way they promote it, and the genre that they're in?
It comes back. I don't want this to turn into a let's all brown nose Bookouture episode, but this is the company. You remember we had Angela Marsons on here, and Angela wrote thrillers set in the Black Country in the Midlands in the UK. And she went to London publishers and said, I've written these books. And they said, we don't think that's going to travel internationally. People don't know about the Midlands. Maybe set it in Cambridge, maybe set it in Oxford, that Middle America's heard of. Then she goes to Bookouture, and she's an international bestseller, millions and millions and millions of copies sold. Same thing with Sue. They are data led. They really do know where those little cracks in the armor are, where those little niches are, where those people live. Yeah. I mean, I'm self-publishing the Woodville books in the States, and I've just started tinkering again with Amazon ads, which is such a world on its own, it is. I'm doing that, you're doing your A/B testing, and you're testing this ad and testing that ad, and you're finding where your readers are. And it's there is a lot of work,
isn't it? That's the thing. I mean, the idea, we talk about big data. You hear that a lot these days, big data. And we know that Google's, Amazon's, obviously, they got tons of it. And having access to that gives them a massive advantage in terms of, it's ultimately like market research on steroids, and it's all automated, and it's probably now being analyzed by AI. So goodness knows what level of insight they get through that. But I think as authors, we do need to embrace this idea, even if it's just a survey to your mailing list, a survey to your readers, find out who they are, find out what they like. It's about understanding the opportunities and finding the opportunities. And when you do that, that's when the magic, we call it, the stars aligning, but actually you can either hope for it, cross your fingers, buy a lottery ticket, or you can maybe do a bit of research into it and increase your understanding of who these people are that love your books. Because if you can identify that, then you know what you're looking for with the other many millions of people out there with the same kind of interests.
Absolutely. Right? One of the most important things you can do as an author now in the 21st century is build that one-to-one relationship with your readers, with a newsletter, website, blog, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. Let's talk quickly about pen names, because pen names are usually something which are driven by an author, but this wasn't the case for Sue Watson, was it, Mark?
Well, again, it's Bookouture, a data-led company. They knew that they had evidence that rom-com readers, a lot of them, that Venn diagram with thriller readers, there was a massive overlap. So she didn't have to do a name change. And I like I said, I have sat in meetings where people are going, well, it's two genres, they'll have to go under a different name. But in this case, Bookouture knew. They talked her out of it. So again, a lot of the assumptions that we have about, you must do this and you must do that. Once you start digging down to it, actually, there are no hard and fast rules, you know. So I thought that was just such an interesting way to turn that on its head, that preconception that we have. So I was really impressed with that.
Now, Sue Watson mentioned about avoiding reading her genre when she's writing a book. What's your take on that? Do you avoid doing that as well when you're writing a certain genre?
I think it's like having a balanced diet. You need to have a bit of everything. If you're a science fiction author and you only read science fiction, or a crime author who only reads crime, I think you are limiting your palette. You learn so much from dipping into other genres, then you bring that back with you, that original flavor, that original bit of spice or seasoning or whatever. So I do read very little of my genre, actually. I don't read many books about witches. I don't read many books about... I mean, I've read all of Terry's books, but I don't sort of keep up with the new stuff, because I think there would be an element of me going, oh, is that what I've got to write now? Is that what makes a book successful?
Yes. Yeah, good point.
And it could, put you off your course a little bit.
Yeah.
That said, I do like to dip in every now and then and read what the best is, and have a look at it. So there's a book on my shelf there, Morgan Is My Name, which is a new take on the King Arthur legend, and Morgana, who was always seen as the villain in the Arthur legend. And I've started reading that. It's really, really good, really, really good. Yeah. And I had the same thing with reading Frances Hardinge as well, which has that kind of So, one or two of these books a year where you dip in and you go, yeah, I'm going to read the best there is, and, soak that up, and see what I can learn from it, rather than let it sort of put me on a wobbler.
Yeah, because Sue said that she didn't want it to influence her too much. Yeah. So I think it's important that you don't overread, but I think it's also really good to get inspired by what's out there and doing really, really well. And it can,
So again, it's a balance, isn't it? It's finding that balance, yeah.
And as we come to the very long extended, let's talk about running out of gas, Mark. It's been a long podcast.
I'm running out of blood. There's a pint. It's very nearly an armful.
Never do a podcast when you've had given blood. You've already given enough of yourself today, Mark. But what I found interesting about what Sue said, she started off writing kind of romance, and there was a lot of fun in there and lots of jokes, and she has definitely that humorous side to her. But when she started writing different genres where maybe humor didn't quite work as well, but it's interesting to say that she said that I became tired of being evil or thinking like, about all the bad stuff. Or even tired of trying to be funny all the time. And you hear that a lot of stand-up comedians hate it when people expect them just to be funny when they bump into them in the streets. Like, no, that's my day job. But there is a point. It's a question. Is there a point where people can run out of gas when they've done one particular genre, for example, one series for too long, and then they just... Well,
that was it. She said she felt she had nothing more to say in rom-coms. And I think is key there is it was her choice to change. It wasn't like the publisher. I think it's that classic thing of something peaks and then goes on for too long. We've all had that, like a sitcom or whatever.
When do you finish The Office? When do you finish Breaking Bad? When do you finish Ozark?
And if there's a self-awareness that you go, okay, that's it, we're going to stop. 40 Towers are only 12, although there's more coming. John Cleese, honestly. But, he decided just to do 12 and that was it. And because of that, they're kind of, held up as this example
classics,
of absolute classics. Blackadder only did 4 seasons and again stopped before. And the thing is, whenever they do a special and come back, it's always disappointing.
Yeah.
So knowing when to stop is. I'm rewatching Ab Fab now. The first 3 seasons of Ab Fab, really, absolutely fabulous, really, really good. But when they were kind of, their arm was twisted to come back, it's not quite as good. So you're not doing it for the right reasons, I think. And as Sue says, she felt she had nothing more to say. And she quoted an author friend of her, Robert Brinzer. He said he was tired of trying to be funny. So she's now she's still enjoying what she's writing, but she said, am I going to get to the point where I'm tired of trying to be evil? So I think that, the lesson to be learned here is a genre isn't for life, Yes. You can pivot, you can change. There are opportunities to do something different.
And you might come back to it. And you might also bring elements.
Yeah,
you might bring elements of things that you did previously, like, the way that Sue brought some of her humor into her new writing. I think that's, it's not like you just leave it all and you can never touch it ever again. It's all going to influence you in some ways, but fascinating
100%.
stuff. Well, thank you so much, folks, for listening to this extended version of the podcast. And we really appreciate your support. And please do spread the word. If you know people who are into writing and they maybe haven't heard of the Bestseller Experiment, please let them know about us. If you know some listeners that haven't subscribed to the extended, maybe tell them what goes on behind the closed doors, so they'll be tempted to chip in as well. So thanks again, everyone. And we'll look forward to bringing you more very soon. So, Mark, so much to celebrate in the month of May in the 200-word challenge.
Give us some names. Mr.
Oh my gosh!
Lots of names.
Okay,
give
folks,
us some shout outs.
I want to give some shout outs to people who've been banking words here because there's. I really, if your name isn't mentioned, I'm just going to shout out first names. If your name is mentioned, there's so many people doing the 200 word a day challenge in May. But firstly, just to say congratulations to people that we've seen putting words in, to Sandra, to Alex, to William, to Edwin, to Pam, to Naomi, to Andrea, Karen, Dan, Charlotte, Danny, Julienne, Richard, Deborah, Penny, Kate, Denise. We've got tons more here. We've got Phil, we've got Heather, we've got Susan, we've got Alyssa, Matt, lovely to hear from Matt again, Tamara, someone called Mark Stay's been doing quite a lot of it. Actually, Mark, congratulations to Mark Stay, to Denzel, to Crosby, to Maria. I'm scanning through here. Let's just pull some more names out here. Oh my gosh, to another Andrea, to another Phil. So there's just tons and tons. So listen, to everyone who's been taking part in the 200 Words Day in May, firstly, congratulations on getting your words down. And also, may this be the start or continuation of a beautiful thing for you as we go into a new month. So if you would like to write in June, if you'd like to try and write every day in June, then pop along and register at 200wordchallenge.com anytime between now and the 1st of June to get started.
Wonderful stuff. Over on the Academy, Chris Everhart, member of the Academy, he's got a book out called Get the Writing Rabble, which is terrific. It's drawing on more than 20 years experience. Chris shares his journey so far in writing and publishing, shines a light in the shadowy corners of the writer's mind, exposes some mistakes he's made along the way, and shows you how you can avoid the pitfalls. Learn how to dodge your inner critic, discover your real job, get the writing rabble today. So this is brilliant. We've got people in the Academy writing books how to write. It's amazing. So,
it's amazing. And I will say, Mark, I wrote the foreword for that book, and so
no way.
I certainly did.
How did I miss that?
Well, but it's actually brilliant to see, just to celebrate some of the Academy members' successes. And we're seeing a lot of great books coming out from the Academy. And I was approached by Chris to write the foreword, and I'm absolutely delighted to do that. So congratulations, Chris. And it's out there. Absolutely brilliant, and may it help many, many, many people on their journey. Fantastic stuff.
Brilliant. We've got a lovely bit of follow-up from the Jessie Keane episode a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember Jessie Keane came on? She had a Romany background. She grew up sort of in the area of Soho and was writing about sort of criminal, nefarious types and drawing on real-life people. We were talking about how you can draw on real-life people. And we had a lovely bit of follow-up from Sasha Green on Patreon, actually. And Sasha said, regarding drawing characters from real life, don't be like the writer in Magpie Murders. So I don't know if you've seen this. This is a novel by Anthony Horowitz, and it was adapted for television. It's been on BBC in the UK over Easter. It was a big hit, and Claire and I watched it and absolutely loved it. And there's a novelist in that who used the people around him as characters in his stories, and he was really cruel to them. And Sasha says, don't be that person. But what Sasha doesn't know, right, this goes even deeper, because I worked at Orion when Magpie Murders was published, and Anthony Horowitz based the character. Now, there's an editor, basically the author dies and they try and figure out how the author was murdered, and the editor tries to solve the crime. And the editor in the book is called Susan Ryland, but she was actually based on a real editor at Orion called Susan Lamb. And as far as I know, Susan knew about it and in advance, but didn't tell anyone. And we all it was one of these things that went around the office. It was like, did you know that the character of Susan Ryland is based on Susan Lamb? We're like, no way. And of course, we all wanted to read it. We had to read it then, and the clue is in the name because Ryland is, I believe, a kind of sheep. So, yeah, it's
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, the stuff we learn and uncover on this podcast is
good, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. Brilliant. Oh, fantastic stuff. So yes, absolutely be kind, but at the same time, use those people around you. Because today, I promise you, when you listen to this, maybe by walking past someone, if you're going for a walk with the podcast, you'll see characters everywhere that will inspire you. And may they make your novel even stronger than it is. Brilliant stuff. Excellent, Mark. Now, how can people find us on social media if they want to get in contact, or the website?
Well, if you go to that there Facebook, we are called Bestseller Experiment. If you're visiting Twitter or Instagrams, we are at Bestseller XP. Come and say hello, drop us a line, share your stories, share your good news. Or go to bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a contact tab there. You can email us directly. And if you've enjoyed this episode, if you've been inspired by Sue or any of our hundreds, and I say that again, hundreds of guests that we've had on the podcast, how about giving us a rating? How about giving us 5 stars? That would be nice. It makes us more visible, helps inspire other writers and make the world a better place. So actually, in a way, by giving us a 5-star review, you're solving climate change.
There we go.
Science. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time being with us on this journey. And we want to wish you a wonderful writing week. If you'd like to get the newsletter, pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com and click on the newsletter tab to get our weekly updates of each podcast that we put out and our new guests coming. And if you'd like to join the Academy, of course, just pop along to academy.bestsellerexperiment.com to find out what all the fuss is about.
Yes.
So it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And it's goodbye. Has anyone got any blood? It's a goodbye from Mark 2.
Goodbye.